Hello and welcome to Banking Transformed. I'm your host, Jim Marous, owner and CEO of the Digital Banking Report and co-publisher of the Financial Brand. In this episode of Banking Transformed, we sit down with John Hope Bryant, the visionary behind Operation Hope. John shares his journey from founding the organization in the aftermath of the 1992 Rodney King riots to becoming a leading advocate for financial literacy and economic empowerment. We delve into his latest book, Financial Literacy for All, and explore the critical role of financial education in building a new American middle class. John discusses the challenges and successes of promoting financial dignity, his influence on federal financial policies, and the future of financial literacy in the digital age. The conversation is a deep dive into the transformative power of financial knowledge and the ongoing fight for economic equality. The majority of Americans continue to struggle to spend, save, borrow, and plan in ways that allow them to be resilient and seize opportunities. More than ever, there's a need for financial education and an understanding by financial institutions as to how to create a more financially inclusive society. This is a must-listen-to episode for anyone interested in personal financial empowerment and social equity. So, John, before we start, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to found Operation Hope?
Well, first of all, honored to be with you, Jim. A lot of my friends and colleagues, Jennifer Tetcher and others, have been on your show, and I have high respect for what you guys do. My journey to this point is probably different than most people. As I think you know, I run the largest financial inclusion holding company in America. I didn't say black, I didn't say minority, period. We have, as a roll-up, it's about $95 million of annual revenue, 400 employees, 300 physical offices, 1,500 satellite locations. Most of that's Operation Hope. $4.7 billion invested through mostly banking institutions in underserved neighborhoods. I built Operation Hope, which most people know about, that I founded. It's the largest financial literacy coaching organization in America, but also the largest minority owner of single-family rental homes in America. I built that over 5 years, sold it, called the Promise Homes Company, sold that Christmas Eve 2021, and in this huge platform for the empowerment of the least of these God's children. And people thought that was philanthropy and a do-gooder sort of thing for so long, and I really think it's emerging markets. I think it's a GDP for the future, gross domestic product. And this goes back to, when I was growing up in South Central LA and Compton, and I'll make this really quick. It's in the book, Financial Literacy for All, if somebody wants to get deep into the story. By the way, the book is #1 on Amazon in business, finance, and economics today for the last 3 months, #1. And a lot of people of color are buying it, which makes me very proud. They're starting to embrace capitalism and free enterprise, which is beautiful. But I grew up, and my mom and dad had a high school education. Juanita Smith, Johnny Will Smith came from the traditional South. My grandfather was a sharecropper, R.B. Smith. My second great-grandfather fought in the Union Army for Lincoln. After he signed the Emancipation Proclamation in Memphis, Tennessee, he's part of the Black troops, one of 7,000 officers, George Young. So I have social justice in fighting for the least of these God children in my blood. Also a business in my blood. Sharecropper, businessman, entrepreneur. My grandfather, my father, me. My grandmother owned a shotgun shack in East St. Louis. My mother owned 7 homes, bought and sold as an hourly worker. I own 700. That is role modeling and environment. It wasn't just good news. My mom and dad had all these assets, Jim, and we lost it all. Again, all the details are in the book, so I don't want to waste time on our podcast going through things people can read. But we had a gas station, 8-unit apartment building, our own home, several businesses. But my dad could make it but couldn't keep it. And he confused making money with building wealth. So the more money we got, the broker we got. The more money he made, the broker we got. And he didn't realize you made money during the day, you build wealth in your sleep. Compounding, stocks, bonds, investments, business, home ownership. Anyway, he would listen to my mother, who was a great saver and a great investor, and they broke up. Marriage, number one cause of divorce of marriages, money. And I saw a murder when I was 7 years old. The guy who saved my life, I was swallowing my tongue over money. I saw a murder. I experienced a murder with my best friend when I was 9 years old. All that was about money. When a banker came in my classroom, Jim, in Compton, California, where my mother bought our first home, a banker came. My classroom happened to be Caucasian, 6'2", red tie, white shirt, beautiful Egyptian cotton shirt, beautiful blue suit with beautiful Italian stitching. Came my classroom when I was 9 years old and taught financial literacy. It's called home economics class back then. Doesn't exist anymore. And he came in once a week for 45 minutes. And initially, he didn't want to be there, Jim, and we didn't want him there. He reminded us of the cop who would, pull some of my friends off the freeway or on the street and hassle him because he wore a suit. It was just a good suit. But, the second time he came around, he was nicer and we were nicer to him. And he says, you kids aren't so bad. You remind me of my kids. And I said, well, you aren't so bad for a white dude. We started building a rapport. And third week he came, he's talking about money and how it worked. And we were all fascinated. And the fourth week he came, I was trying to wear a suit just like him. And I only had one suit. It was a crushed velvet 3-piece velour suit with a ruffled shirt and a big bow tie. My mother had made me for Sunday service. And she's, I can't afford to buy you a suit. You can wear that one. And I got beat up every day wearing that suit. But I wanted to be like that banker. And I had a briefcase with my dreams in it. And my teacher, who I now look back on, I can reflect, my teacher was Caucasian female. Principal was Caucasian female. They used to buy mail order stuff I began to sell in my little briefcase of dreams. And I think that plus the banker gave me a positive experience with white America unconsciously. And I wasn't intimidated or offended or afraid. I was actually inspired by us working. We're better together. And that banker I asked one day, Jim, this is the answer to your question of the why. What do you do for a living? And how'd you get rich legally? And Jim, I was dead serious because nobody in my neighborhood wore a suit.
Right.
Nobody in my neighborhood had a salary. My mother worked an hourly job with 2 15-minute breaks and a lunch break. She only came to school in the middle of the day if I got into trouble. Otherwise, she was at work. This guy showed up anytime he wanted. He had a nice car in the parking lot. It was legal. He had tags on it. He had a business card, Jim, that said 16th floor. Well, there was nothing in Compton above the 6th floor that wasn't the courthouse. So where's the 16th floor? What do you do? How did you get rich legally? He said, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. And I said, sir, I don't know what an entrepreneur is. I've never heard that phrase or that word my entire life. But whatever it is, if it's legal and you're financing it, I'm going to be one. And I opened up the dictionary, Google search today, and looked up the word entrepreneur, French word, build, value, create something from nothing. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And I said, hey, by the way, one last question, Mr. Banker. He was a B of A banker, by the way, Bank of America, who is a big partner with us in Hope Inside today. Excuse me, banker, are there many of you? What do you mean? Well, all my friends are getting killed, dealing this with illegal free enterprise and capitalism, and hood lenders, all kind of crap. Are there many of you? He said, there's got to be at least 1 million bankers. This was 1976-ish, 77. It's the first year of CRA. And he said, there's got to be 1 million bankers. There's 10,000 banks back then. And I said, wait a minute, hold on. It's 1 million of you people, and your job is to lend poor people money, and I don't get dead or I don't pay you back. He's like, no, you get a notice of default. I'll hurt your credit, but I won't hurt you. I said, well, what's credit? I mean, we start just unpacking it, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to teach everybody this. Like, everybody's got to know how this system works. I mean, all these folks in my neighborhood were natural hustlers, Jim. Like the drug dealer is illegal, is immoral, it's irrational for long term. But that drug dealer is not dumb. He understands import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale,
He's
retail,
a small businessman. He's a small businessman.
There you go. And he's got payroll. And then I started looking at, I said, well, the gang leaders are frustrated union organizers. They really have great organizing skills, but no one's invested in the business plan of these people. Nobody even knows they exist, because if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. And I'm like, I got to expose the world to them to the world, and the world to them, and be a bridge to create new entrepreneurs. And for those listening to this or watching this, if you want to have a sort of similar analogy to what I experienced growing up in my neighborhood, think about NASCAR. The president of NASCAR is on my board. NASCAR came from moonshine runnings in the Appalachian Mountain. White, poor, struggling moonshine runners who realized it was not a long-term occupation. You're going to get dead or imprisoned or both. And they realized they couldn't run moonshine, but they were great at driving. And they turned that into a profession. And 5 generations later, 3, 4, 5 generations later, their family has $100 million net worth with logos on their cars and complete respectability. That's what we need. That's the trajectory of America. You have big businesses that were once small ones. You have these institutions and household names that were once somebody's idea in a garage, or some striver somewhere. But we have not looked at the least of these God's children today in inner city and underserved neighborhoods, places where people call ghettos, right? You've not looked at them as future GDP. You look at all these folks who are poor white, largest population of poverty in this country. People don't realize, poor white. And the number one group dying in America is a high school educated white man dropping dead of opioid addiction, which is really depression. Now those people right now are rioting at the ballot box. They're frustrated, they're angry, and they feel like they got a spokesman for their fear. But fear and anger is not a business plan. And I tell people in the hood that I don't care whether you're rioting in the streets or the ballot box, is not going to end well. What we all need is a belief that if we work hard, play by the rules, do the right thing, keep our nose clean, obey the rules, we'll get a shot at success or failure on our own merit. And not enough people believe the latter works for them. They believe the latter is broken. They believe it's been smashed. People say they hate rich people. No, you don't. You hate rich people until you become rich. What you hate is a game system that you believe that the system's rigged for you to not succeed. The rich will get richer and you'll work your tail off and be poor. And then you have people watching this, listening to this, who are gainfully employed, Jim, but they got too much month at the end of their money. I'm talking about middle-class white folks making $100,000 a year, and half of them are living from paycheck to paycheck. Some of those making $250,000 a year. A third of those are living from paycheck to paycheck. And clearly 70% of this country is paycheck to paycheck. And of course, we know the underserved. So we need a business plan for America. And that's what I'm about. I think that if Dr. King was alive, he'd be saying that financial literacy is a civil rights issue of this generation. He'd be trying to bind us all back together in a new vision of whole cloth, where we all rise up and create a new, generation of prosperity and opportunity for all. And that's what I'm about.
John, it's very interesting because you unpacked a whole lot there. But when you look at it, and we talked about it a little bit before the podcast, this is not a race issue. This is in certain ways not even an economic issue in the traditional sense, where it's amount of money. It has to do with understanding how you can move forward, and even when the odds are stacked against you. We've had a few people on the show talking about alternative credit scores, where people that are in a rental situation have the odds stacked against them with traditional credit bureaus. Right. We talk about the fact that if you don't understand how the system works, it works against you. And your new book that you've mentioned, The Financial Literacy for All, really talks about the shrinking of the traditional middle class and the need to build a new middle class that understands how to become get financial freedom, how to understand how to make money, save money, how to prepare for the future that, as you mentioned, the biggest fear people have, doesn't matter what you talk about, it doesn't matter what the outcome is It's the inability to think you can ever get ahead, where you're always playing from behind.
Yes.
So when you look at your book and when you look at the mission of rebuilding what I'm going to call a new middle class or a larger middle class at a time when it seems like in many cases, financial institutions, the traditional financial landscape really is stacked against you. What is a single takeaway or a couple takeaways that you would hope that people would understand on how to make it where you can become one of the people you're angry at a lot of times, or sometimes they're just angry at themselves because they feel frustrated. How do people get out of that role? And the other side of that is, how can financial institutions help that journey?
I'm going to answer that hopefully crisply in a couple different ways. One, 700 credit score neighborhoods don't riot. They just go shopping. And 500 credit score neighborhoods riot all the time. And they don't just riot in the streets. As I said earlier, they riot in the ballot box. Now, that may strike your audience a little odd that I just said that. But if you go to a poor, white, rural community, or you go to a black and brown urban community, here's what you see. A check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store, next to a pawn shop, and a church down the street, which is trying to make you feel a little bit better once a week so you don't go postal on somebody on Monday. That is your neighborhood psychologist. Now, we drive by that every day and we think it's normal. It's not normal. That is a perverted financial system that's preying on people who are depressed, distressed, and financially illiterate, and who have a surviving mindset. And we have too many people in this country who have a surviving mindset in a thriving world. They're depressed, real talk, they're depressed, and they want to take it out on somebody and hurt people. And what we've got to do is to make education an absolute obsession in this country. K through 12 was for the agrarian age. You had summers off because you went to go work in the fields at the plant with your family. We're out of the agrarian age. We've gone from the agrarian age to the industrial age, the technology age, the information age. We're about to go into the AI age. We need 24/7 obsession with education. We need K through college and trade-specific education for everybody. I'm a radical perspective that education should be a public good. That actually, the more people you have educated, the bigger your GDP will be, and the less crime you'll have. If you live in a 580 credit score neighborhood, Jim, you live to 61 years old. I've mapped every zip code in America by credit score with the help of Experian Data, one of our partners. Their president's on our board. The Hope Financial Wellness Index, we call it. Your people can search it and put your zip code in where you live. It'll tell me your zip code. I'll tell you how you live it. And you live to 81 years old, 15 minutes away in a 700 credit score neighborhood. And literally, home ownership in 700, renters in 580. You live to 81 in 700, you live to 61 in 580. You have crime going through the roof and depression and obesity, and it's 580. You have stability, two-parent households, and in the 700. You have small business creation and college education in the 700. You have high school education as a normal in the 580. It's not about the credit score. It's a trending indicator of hope, well-being, belief, confidence, trust. As you know, credit comes from the Latin root word credibility. It has nothing to do with money. It's credito, credibility. The Latin root word of capital is capitalism. It's capito, capitos, which is knowledge in the head. And banking is a trust business. So it's credibility that acts as capital so that you can engage yourself in an environment that requires trust. So we need to move credit scores across this country 100 points to 700. It'll stabilize the country. It'll pop GDP. Number two, we need to figure out very basically, are we better together? It's a very simple question. Are we better together, or is our business plan divide and conquer? It's a very simple question, but we don't seem to realize that we have to answer this question. And I like math because it doesn't have an opinion. The only place where I don't employ math is in a relationship, husband and wife, partners, friends, colleagues, citizens, because in a relationship, 2 + 2 has to equal more than 4. Otherwise, why are you doing it? 6, 8, or 10 should be the bet. And what people need to realize are two things. This will be the first generation over 65. Those are white, wealthy baby boomers trying to retire. There's not enough college-educated, successful white men to drive GDP for the next 30 years. That's not a racial comment I'm making. It's just math, right? It's just math. I want every white person listening to this to be successful. I want every college-educated white male to get the best job for as long as he can. We need you, right? We need you to succeed. But there's not enough of you because demographics are destiny. So now you have all these people retiring and getting older who have the wealth. You have 40% of this country that's black and brown, and in 10 years will be a majority of minorities. This is what scares people to bejeebers. Nobody wants to actually say it. I'm going to say it. These folks are not financially literate. They've never been taught the difference between making money and building wealth. They're not stupid. They're actually geniuses. They've been doing so much with so little for so long. They almost do anything with nothing. And after the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, created a bank to teach him about money and financial literacy, and he was murdered the next month. And the bank failed. It was across from the White House. I got the bank building renamed to the Freedmen's Bank building from the Treasury Annex building 4 years ago. So we never finished the work of making the sort of upstarts new capitalists. We never taught poor whites how to join the wealthy whites. We never taught Native American Indians how to do something other than sit on a reservation and maybe have a casino. I'm being sarcastic, but direct. Nope. We never taught people at the bottom how to get to the top, and you can't get an internship and the suites if all you know is everybody from the streets. So, and as you know, this is relationship capital. Like the people you work with, you didn't read a resume off the internet. You knew them from this and that. And somebody said you should work with Leah and Chris, and oh yeah, I like that person. And oh, by the way, I have another assignment where you work with me. That's the way the world works. It's relationship capital. So we need a new bridge of relationship capital from the streets to the suites. This is why I think that like these arguments around things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, that title's dead. It's been beat up politically. But anybody who doesn't understand that if we don't teach the people at the bottom to be part of what's at the top, and we're a consumer-driven economy, and you never had a superpower that wasn't the economic power at the same time in the history of the world, and that's literally true.
Yep.
Then what's their business plan? I'm just asking like a basic question. I'm not trying to be like, radical here. I'm just saying it's a radical movement of common sense. While we're destroying the DE&I programs for whatever political reason people have it, or fear or whatever, my question is, if demographics are destiny, and what I just said, and there's much more that I got to say than that, are destiny, then what else is the plan? If we're not going to teach the people at the bottom, who just happen to look different than the immigrants of 100 years ago, because folks who came in from Poland and Germany and
all look the same.
They all look the same, but those were immigrants who became Americans.
Right.
So if we're not going to take folks who just may look a little different now and give them the American experience of up from nothing, and give them the education and give them the shot, then what is our plan not to speak Mandarin in 20 years? Because this economy is going to keep growing whether we participate in it and cooperate or not. Somebody's going to take the lead. I believe it should be America. But we've got to actually believe that we're better together. And I'm going to say something additionally radical, Jim. If we do what I just said, and God forbid there's somebody who's who considers themselves a racist watching this, I say if Black people succeed in the way in which I described, a hand up, not a handout, teach them how to fish, even the racist wins.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I mean, again, it's the tide. If the tide rises,
that's it.
Everybody benefits. And as you said, when you talk about the number of people that are retiring that created a lot of this wealth, simply distributing it to their kids is not going to take care of the problem, because you don't have the literacy doesn't go with it. So when we talk about what do we do about this, financial institutions play a very major role, both positively and negatively, in this whole environment.
Without question.
In your book and in your organization, how do financial institutions do better at the financial literacy part?
I love it.
For instance, in the first paragraph or second paragraph of what you said when I asked you about yourself, you talked about the fact that you were taught, as I was taught, home economics.
Yeah.
We were taught basic finance. We weren't taught a deep finance, but there was at least a teaching about how to manage a bank account, how you make money. I mean, heck, we all had lemonade stands at some point in our lives or delivered papers. We don't even have, you can put a lemonade stand together, but a lot of the jobs that we all had as children, I mean, 8, 9, 10, aren't available today for various reasons. Mm-hmm. How can financial institutions play a role in the solution as opposed to simply being the barrier?
That's a great question. And you cannot grow the economy in a community without banking. You cannot. You need seed corn. You need access to credit and capital, equity and debt, good debt, good equity. And you need, and that's the American banking system is a jewel in the world. And what we've done, we're the only nonprofit by the federal regulators, the FFIEC, that has allowed a nonprofit to operate inside of a bank branch ever. And we operate in the side of Wells Fargo, Truist, U.S. Bank, Bank of America, all these institutions. It's easier for me to tell you who we don't operate in than who we do. We have 300 physical locations, 1,500 satellite locations. 800 of those satellite locations are at Truist alone, which is almost half of their branches, which says, Jim, that's a business case, not a charity case.
Right.
And so what we do is get the bank out of the no business. Sorry, you declined for a loan, declined for credit access, and back into the yes business. Yes, you've been approved by getting the credit score up 54 points in 6 months through our coaching and counseling, getting the credit score up 120 points in 24 months through our coaching and counseling. And nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. Getting your debt down $3,800 for somebody making $48,000 a year transforms their life. Getting their savings up $2,000 for the same individual. So if I take somebody making $48,000 a year, they walk in the bank branch with a credit score of 605 or 580, make this really simple. That person's going to be declined for access to credit. And the bank is afraid to be sued, so they're not even going to tell the person why they were declined. So sorry, you get a letter in the mail, go to your credit bureaus. That person's financially illiterate. They're financially illiterate, they're depressed, they're distressed, they barely believe in the free enterprise system enough to go walk in the bank. You probably have crappy role models. They were cynical, not skeptical. And now you just confirmed everything that they thought that they knew that didn't work. They got declined, and no one talked to them, no one explained something to them, no one tried to help them. So in our model, we're in the bank branch, but we don't work for the bank. And so the banker says, look, go talk to Operation Hope over there. They can say things we can't. So they walk over to our desk, and Mary Sue pulls up, and she says, yeah, Mary Sue, how you doing? Yeah, well, they told me to come see you. Can I see your credit report? Yep, here it is. Woo! Baby, it looks like a bus accident. And Mary Sue has a nice laugh because she knows she ain't been an angel, right? She's not unaware. She's like, yeah, I got a couple things going on. All right, Mary, what's this? Oh, I don't know what that is. Fantastic. That's called an error. You sure that's not yours? I don't know what that is. Okay, great. The law states, with you, we're going to write a letter to the credit bureaus. Is that okay? Yes. We're going to write a letter, and if they can't confirm that that's yours within 1 month, 3 credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, they must remove it. And the majority of the time, Jim, we write that letter, they remove it, credit score pops 20 to 30 points. Now, you imagine, Jim, what happens to her self-esteem.
Right.
I mean, she's gone from 680 in this example, 580 to 610. She's got a 6 in front of her name. For the first time in her life, maybe. But her shoulders are back, her head's up. Okay, credibility. She's got some capitas, some knowledge in the head. She's being the trust again. Okay, John, what next? Okay, what's this? Oh, I got divorced. It was 10 years ago. It was horrible, and I didn't know he didn't pay that bill. I can't pay $1,000 phone bill. He ran it up. Don't worry, that was 10 years ago. AT&T sold it to Pac Bell. Sold it to SBC chased you. They couldn't find you. Joe's finance company bought this thing, and let's call them up. I don't have $1,000. Trust me, they bought it for 5 cents on the dollar.
Yeah,
$50.
Yep.
We call them. Okay, I got Mary Sue here, whatever. We're looking for her. She's looking for you. We want to pay this off. We want $100. We're going to pay you $200. Why would you pay me $200? Because I want your cooperation. I'm going to overpay you. I'll make you look good, and I want you to pull this off her credit report every time it shows up in the next 6 months. So her credit score pops another 20 or 30, maybe even 40 points, and they got a 200% profit. She got a 80% discount. Fair exchange is no robbery.
Everybody has a win.
We keep working at that, and we get to a point where she's at a 680, 700 credit score. Her financial competency is up, her literacy is up, her debt to income ratios are in place. She's got, we worked it out to get her to get an earned income tax credit check for $10,000 from the federal government for a bonus for working. She didn't know about that. Now she has a down payment on that $100,000 house she wants to buy in Cincinnati or wherever it is. And the banker gets to book a good loan that's going to pay. Now, we just created a customer, and you do that at scale, and you're doing well and doing good. It's emerging markets in America. And CRA will allow that banker to give this particular resident maybe slightly below market financing, maybe a down payment assistance grant because of the programs under CRA. So it's like nonprofit investment banking, if you want to see it that way, where we're sort of patching and bridging different things together so to help the banker to get to yes. Our job is to make it easy for the banker and the bank to be innovative. Let us take the innovation hit. Let us talk to the regulators. We'll sit in the meeting with you with the regulators. We'll ask the regulator questions like, do you want them to comply or prove that this loan is safe and sound? Well, we'd like for them to do both. Okay, but what's the primary thing? What's your mission? Safe and sound. Okay, great. Let's do that first. So we've proven now through alternative documentation. Isusu does reporting of rent statements to credit bureaus, example. Let's prove that it's safe and sound loan. Okay, now we got there slightly through a different route, thick file underwriting. Can we find a way to make sure this hits all your compliance requirements? And then we get to yes in a different way. So we've done $4.5 billion of capital access just that way, 4 million clients, and become a norm in the banking industry. Won the Innovator of the Year award from American Banker. I'm sure you've done all your research, you know all this stuff, but we just come at it in a different way.
Well, it's interesting, John, because it doesn't take a rocket science to realize that when a person starts to get financially secure, it impacts their physical health and their mental health. A person that would continually say there's no answer for me, and it's easy to make excuses as to why you don't take that next step. It gives them that ability. And we all know that when somebody's in financial stress, it impacts every part of their health. Mm-hmm. And you get diabetes, you get, obesity, you have everything else that goes on with that. But you also look and it changes the community because every person that can be helped, it can spread because everybody's looking for good news. It's hard to find sometimes, but everybody's looking for that. So in what you do with financial institutions today, what is your biggest challenge to making an impact?
The death of old bad ideas or just old worn out ones. I mean, people are stuck in what they've always done. Yeah. Whether it's working or not, they're creatures of habit. And they're really not trying to get a new idea. I tell my people all the time that a middle manager's job is to say no. Because if they say yes to the wrong thing, they get fired. So the answer...
I was that person for a number of years, yep.
My guess is you never said no to a good idea. You're too
not to a good idea, but I've said no to things that I thought would, you talk about a loan manager, something like that. Yeah. You end up in a situation that a no has less risk. And doing something different has a lot of risk.
That's right. Yeah. I had to figure out that the CEO was actually in the yes business. The CEO I went to a little community bank when I first started Operation Hope in Lancaster, California, outside of LA. And I was looking for a $1,000 donation to Operation Hope in 1992. And I just talked to this guy. He's still alive and he was retired. I called him to say thank you. But he was a banker at what was a single branch location in Lancaster. I wanted a $1,000 donation to Operation Hope. And I walked in, and it was my second meeting with him, so I felt a little casual, Jim, with him. And he had his feet up on the desk. And I said, why are you being so lazy when everybody else is working? He said, what do you mean? You got your feet on the desk, you have a Wall Street Journal and a phone. Everybody else is working. He said, John, you don't understand my job. The appraiser has their job. Underwriters have their job. The loan technicians, they have their job. I mean, everybody's out doing their thing. My job is to sit here with my feet up on the desk and read the Wall Street Journal, figure out where the economy and the market's going, and then pick up that phone. And that's my job. And that's why that's why you're sitting in front of me, because you actually might qualify if you don't irritate me before the end of this meeting. And if you shut your mouth up long enough, I may give you $1,000 to get out of my office. And so I gave him a solution that he hadn't thought about before, and he said yes to me. But if I had gone 3 levels below him, the answer probably would have been no, not because it wasn't a good idea, but because it's too much risk. So you gotta. I think I've had to learn to go to the folks who are going to be most receptive to my message and add value to their business plan, solve a problem for them at scale, understand the unique challenges that they're dealing with. I try to do that with my poor white brothers and sisters. I try to do that with middle class America. I try to do that with the working poor, the struggling class, the middle class, and the wealthy. I try to do that with Republicans and Democrats. I try, as you see behind me, I've served three U.S. presidents from both parties. With the same message, but it's by putting myself in the other person's shoes and then working backwards. And I just had to learn that you can't just come and say, I've got a solution or I've got an idea. They may come from a perspective where somebody once told me it's hard to get somebody to agree to the truth when the lie is paying their paycheck.
Yeah. Well, and again, embracing change is a tough road, especially for bankers that rely on not taking risks in many cases. So, John, we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast around the fact that we have technology that's coming on board right now that is going to really change not only the way the financial institutions run, but the way that people can not only become more financially literate, but actually educate themselves. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the role of technology, of advancing literacy and inclusion, what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited, by the way, when I was talking about business role models in banking, this guy named Brian Jordan, who's the CEO of First Horizon Bank, the largest bank in Tennessee, who committed to put 10% of Hope Inside in all of their branches. Now we have Brian Jordan. If you just look at us side by side, we have nothing in common. But we're brothers. We call each other brothers, and I love him. And he's taken me deep, deep, deep into the South, where he felt that he wanted to advocate for me and protect me. This was years ago.
Yeah.
But he said, John, you've got a solution that these people need. And he said, I can't give it to them. You can't. And I can't give them capital until you do your part for them. And they may even call you some nasty names, but they'll thank you at the end of the process, because they just don't know what they don't know. And we're coming from places of ignorance and blind spots. And if you'll be gracious, I'll be generous with my time, and then you'll be generous with your understanding, and I will be generous with my wallet. And Brian Jordan is now running one of the most successful banks in the entire South, because he's gotten the memo, and we're a great model together. And I think that I want bankers to open their mind like he did, and understand God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you talk, and upgrade your software. And in that regard, the new thing is AI, and it's both exhilarating and exciting and completely terrifying.
Oh yeah.
And I'm co-chair of the AI Ethics Council with Sam Altman, who I believe is the Steve Jobs of this generation. And the meeting I had with him, the first meeting I had, public meeting I had, was extraordinarily terrifying, because literally everything is going to change. If you're watching this, listening to this, and you're an accountant, your job's gone in 5 years. You better reimagine your practice. You can, by the way. This is like when the calculator came and replaced what came before that. The TV replaced the radio. I'm not saying your job has gone away. Your job is changing, but you can't just chill and do what you did before, because AI can do that in a second.
Yep.
Half of lawyers It's not just people at the bottom, Jim. I mean, if you work at a convenience store, gone. You're working at a grocery store as a clerk, that job's gone. You're working at a fast food restaurant, that job's gone. You're working at the airport at a counter, most of those jobs are gone. It's going to be automated, artificial intelligence is gone. But if you're in middle class, as my friend Van Jones said, Jim, 99% of Black folks don't know a thing about AI. And he paused and said, and 99% of white folks don't know a thing about AI. We're all starting at the same point. But with it, by 2030, this is going to be a complete game changer for how we comport ourselves. This is like going from 1850 to 1910, from horse and buggy to automobiles. Complete game changer. Jobs didn't go away. They did disappear.
At 10 times the speed. At 10 times the speed. And, it's interesting, John, because we can stand back and feel threatened by technology and AI. We have in the past. We did it when factories got converted to robotics, and we fearful of the future. I think generative AI and AI in general can provide us so many tools if we educate ourselves today. It gets back, John, you said it from the very beginning of this podcast. It comes back to education.
Yes.
You have so many tools. You can put in a question to AI, this is my financial situation. This is what I have in assets. This is what I have in liabilities. Here's how I make my money. Here's how I spend my money. Help educate me as to what I should do to protect my future financially. And today, generative AI will give you a very good answer to that question. Well, you'll also realize, getting back to your 2 ears and 1 mouth, you'll realize that the better you structure that question, the better the answer is going to become. So you're going to learn that the future is not based on what you know, but what you know how to ask about, the inquisitive 100%. Mind. You look at your beginning. I mean, it's very clear your beginning started with a ton of questions to people that you knew the answers, both from a social situation and also a financial situation.
That was AI.
You surrounded yourself by leaders that would tell you, oh, by the way, look out for this, because you continued to have that fire in you that said, I've got to ask these questions. I can't go in the room thinking I know all the answers, because that's the first death knell. As you said, the banker in Tennessee or the banker in Los Angeles. If you went in saying I know everything, they'd make the question answer session very short for you. They'd show you the door.
That's right.
Today, the technology is available, free, by the way. You don't have to pay for ChatGPT. You don't have to pay for Claude. You can get the basic levels of these things. You can lay out you can also tell it, this is what I want my future to look like. What do I need to do? And it's going to give you a very educated answer. We've got to, it gets back to education. We're giving our children the worst education we ever have because we're doing it the same way we were 50 years ago, with the same technologies and the same tools and with the same barriers. A lot of people realizing, as you have and others have, that if you take those extra 5 hours when you're watching TV and you spend it on YouTube or you spend it on something that can teach you how to do something else, you're going to learn. It doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter where you are in the social strata or what your job is currently. It will be disrupted. I think it's so interesting because, again, from a financial institution basis, we've got to be able to open the doors as an industry, because not only do individuals depend on us, but so do entrepreneurs, so do the small businesses in the community that really drive the employment of a community.
This can be a boon for bankers, because if you know how to ask AI, as you said, the question the right way, it will give you a cultural look around a corner that you don't have in your own toolbox.
Right.
That will allow you to connect with a marketplace and with people and understand how you can approach folks in a way that will, frankly, allow you to secure the business. And it's like, if you're a little doctor in a village in Africa, right now you're at a huge disadvantage to Emory University here in Atlanta. But very soon, you're going to have the same information in your pocket through AI that Emory University has. it'll probably solve cancer in the next 10 years. If it doesn't destroy the world. It's a whole nother conversation that
another podcast. Yeah.
Another podcast. But here's a real practical example of AI. So I was writing an op-ed, and I screwed around with two major media writing teams for 6 weeks, going back and forth on what I ultimately wrote, something called the Business Plan for America, which I encourage everybody here to search on the internet and read. It's free. It's a companion to my book, Financial Literacy for All. And I was trying to get these writers to help me get this down to 800 words. And it was 1,800 words. But it was full of statistics I thought were important. And Jim, I went back and forth with 6 weeks, back and forth, calls, telecom. They couldn't do it. So finally, I was on the phone with Bishop T.D. Jakes one night at midnight. And he said, John, what are you doing? Just cut, paste. You're a public figure. Cut, paste, put it in Chat GPT and say, please write this as if John Hope Bryant would write this in 800 words while leaving the salient points present. Hit enter.
Immediate.
It took 5 seconds, maybe.
Yeah.
And Jim, it was brilliant. It was as if I absolutely wrote it. And maybe if I had taken a month to do nothing but sit there and noodle, I'd have gotten to the same place. But it was an incredible time saver. And it was me. It was me talking. I mean, that was like, that's exactly how I would have wrote it. So it's scary like the future, but it's also promising. And I encourage people to embrace the future, embrace diversity, embrace inclusion, embrace emerging markets, embrace technology, embrace education, embrace the all of us. Which is the country, which is the story of this country since the beginning. All of us, and then we'll win again for the next 50 to 100 years.
John, how do our listeners get a hold of you and your organization if they want to learn more about how you partner with financial institutions to open the doors to financial literacy, to confidence, to the future of learning?
Yeah. So if they want a passive relationship, I've got 3 million followers on social media, about 1 million video views every week, and a podcast myself called Money and Wealth. They can just subscribe to one of those or follow Operation Hope. If you just want to listen, you just want to sit and sort of absorb it. It's new content every day. If you want an interactive relationship, get a hold of Mary.Haggerty at operationhope.org or Bill.Fair, F-A-I-R, at operationhope.org. You can go to our website, but I'm giving you very specific names and say that you want a relationship with Operation Hope. And you can become a member of the 1865 Project, which goes back to Abraham Lincoln's creation of the Freedmen's Bank. That's an honor of that, to support our work, support me. Or you can become a partner in our work from youth to middle income to adults to seniors. What we're doing with savings accounts in kindergarten here in Atlanta Public Schools, as an example, is a game changer for the future generation, because the results show that if you have a bank account at kindergarten, you're 50% more likely to go to college, no money in it. And if you have any money in that account, $25, you're 75% more likely to graduate from college. And that's doing well and doing good at the same time. And then wrap financial literacy around that, and the banker going into a classroom in their local area. Now you have a role model for the future. And now every banker listening to this is a frustrated teacher anyway. Now you get to be the change you want to see in the world. So you can volunteer with us. You can partner with us. You can support us. We can inspire you to go do your own hope commitment in your own neighborhood. Take the book, underline it, dog ear it, write it, and then take that and give that to a local library or school and go teach financial literacy. So we sort of meet you where you are, Jim. We whatever relationship you want to have, want a big one, want a small one, want no one. We'll meet you there. Because we just want you to win. Because if you win, America wins.
John, I really appreciate your time. It's interesting that we talk to financial companies or fintech firms that have partnered with financial institutions. This is an unusual situation because you are a partnering organization that makes it so financial institutions don't have to relearn what somebody's already learned. I mean, you have a long history at Operation Hope. You've done so many things. We've talked a lot about your successes, but there's been failures as well. And I think to have an organization you can partner with that has gone through this already and learned things and can help make the community stronger? Because really that's what we're talking about. We're talking about individuals. You talked about your kindergarten savings accounts. We've had a couple of companies on that do those kind of programs. And it's interesting how quickly that trends up to the parents, because the parents don't want to admit that they have less than a kindergarten education on how to manage money, and their kids can help teach them. This can be habitual and a great momentum builder at a time when I think the majority of people in the world right now have a negative perspective on the future in one way or the other.
Right.
Look at what's out there and stop making excuses. Your passion, your enthusiasm, your commitment to your mission, and the mission that I think all of us believe in is encouraging. And I think that financial institutions are the organization in every single community. And if they can take the lead and build this, it can make a difference in people's lives well beyond the financial side. I mean, as I said, it's your health wellness, your personal wellness, your financial wellness, your physical wellness. Every part of this is intertwined. So, John, thank you so much for being on the show. And we're going to make this a regular visit, because we didn't cover anywhere near what we could cover, but it certainly gave us a good starting point. Thank you so much for your time.
My deep honor, and thanks for being a lighthouse on the hill.
Thanks for listening to Banking Transformed, rated as a top 5 banking podcast and the winner of 3 international awards for podcast excellence. If you enjoyed what we're doing, please show some love in the form of a review. This helps us to continue to get great guests like John. This has been a production of Evergreen Podcast. A special thank you to our senior producer, Leah Haslage, audio engineer, Chris Fafalius, and video producer, Will Fritz. I'm your host, Jim Marous. Until next time, remember, financial wellness should not be a luxury for the few, but a basic requirement for all.